I got asked a question about benefits of managed hosting versus self-hosting. So I think the question was, is it easier to, or what's the difference between them? So there's actually like a whole spectrum of solutions. And so let me just back up. So the simplest solution, the simplest way to get an app up into the cloud would be to set up probably a Linux box and run Apache on that. Or, well, anything. I would actually run Express, probably, because that's what I'm most familiar with. And then I would literally use a product called ngrok, N-G-R-O-K, to tunnel. And what tunneling means is it literally just gives you a pathway from the cloud down to your machine. And that way, people could navigate to a URL that you provide, and they would find your app. That's the simplest way to do it. And that way, if you needed a database layer, you would literally build that using SQL or NoSQL. And if you wanted to make sure that anyways, if you needed to do any sort of load balance or anything, you'd have to come up with how to do that on your own. Okay? Now, a slightly simpler way to deploy things to the cloud is, and I just mean simpler as you have less things you're actually responsible for. In the case I just discussed, you're literally responsible for everything. The reason I would use something like ngrok is because I don't want to worry about like maintaining where my IP is. I just never got around to figuring that out, to be honest. So there's probably a better answer there, but the whole point is that my IP might change, and so if I had a DNS record, it might break. Whereas if I use ngrok, I don't need to worry about that. Okay. So basically there's like layers, okay? And you can work all the way from like, you build all your own infrastructure, all the way to you're responsible for none of your infrastructure, and you literally use a cloud product to store your data, to host your app, to do auth, to do everything. So Firebase is on the complete other end of the spectrum. So a second question is, what should I start with? It depends. Me personally, I like to break things into manageable chunks. So when I'm learning something, I like to figure out like, how can I break this into as many pieces as possible so it doesn't seem overwhelming. And so if I'm gonna do that, I would actually use a product like Firebase for a few reasons. One, it's designed by fairly smart people. Two, it's free. Yeah, there's a paid plan. There always is a paid plan, okay? You don't get anything for free in life. So I get a kick out of these people that are like, yeah, but I have to pay for that. I'm like, well, how many hours did it take you to set up your own infrastructure? Because like, if your time's worth nothing, then I guess, yeah, don't pay for anything. But if your time's worth nothing, then you're in some deep shit. Anyway, so Firebase, it gives you a bunch of stuff that, and there's other solutions out there like, actually I'm not sure if there is anything else like Firebase. Firebase is pretty great. So yeah, it gives you a whole bunch of stuff. Like you don't need to worry about anything. All you need to worry about is building your app in development and then making a production build and then sending that production build, and by that I mean the folder called build, to your hosting, and then it will take care of the rest. So honestly, I would go with that solution first because it's simpler. And the number one problem I see with people getting into web development is they're too fucking smart for their own good, and they think the more complicated they make something, the more impressive it will be. That's completely wrong. And it gets in the way, and it causes a lot of people to get burnt out and give up. And it also does not look impressive on a resume that you made something of your own that's not anywhere near. It's a lot more impressive if you use like enterprise level production ready tools and you know how to use them, because guess what you're going to be using when you go and start a job? Most places are going to leverage existing tech like backends as a service or like platform as a service. Most people that are building products that are being used by lots of users are using AWS or Google Cloud or Firebase. They may have some infrastructure that they roll on their own, but it's usually vertical specific infrastructure. It's not like auth, because auth is a common problem. So why not just, allocate your engineering resources to solve the problems that are unique to your product? So long story short, learning, and the other thing is you don't know shit right now. If you're just in the first few years of web app development, then you know little, jack shit. So that you should be spending less time sitting there twirling your mustache thinking about this cool, massive undertaking you're gonna do, and spend more time looking at what other engineers have done already and how you can use their existing solutions. Because that will teach you a lot. Reading code and learning how to use APIs and learning how to use these services and these solutions will teach you a lot about how great production ready things that can scale should be built. Okay? So yeah, that's my answer. I mean, there's all sorts of stages, from Firebase to literally rolling your own Linux box and hoping the power doesn't go out. But that's the difference between something that's managed and something that isn't managed. Okay, thanks, bye.